Before we get into it, if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that.
Alright folks, here we are on Thursday, February 27th. We're going to take a look at Lucid today. So I had a request for another Lucid video. And here we are. So I updated the chart a bit. I feel like we did a pretty good job where we called out the potential for some movement down here with these short-term EMAs crossing over. Let me just get rid of these, make it a little easier to see. I had mentioned before this was my favorite setup, and it got two cracks at the 183 EMA and then fell apart on earnings. But I do feel like we had a pretty good run there from, we started calling it out about 240 or so. And so if you had ridden 240 up to 340, you could have done that within a matter of a month or less. And that's not a bad swing trade for that period of time. And the sell signal coming in at the 183 would have been perfect, right? So that's what we talked about in those videos. Now that, to me, was the best possible opportunity for some meaningful turn. And our hope was, for the Lucid Bulls at least, that there was potential for a more meaningful turnaround for Lucid. But I did say, I'm not looking to marry the stock. And so if there's a swing to be had here, I'm happy to swing it. That's mostly what I look for. But I know a lot of people are underwater and under distress because this is what the long-term Lucid chart looks like, and I know that that's really rough. And at this point, it seems pretty apparent that that attempt to do anything meaningful sort of double topped here and then completely fell apart, like I said, on earnings. So my question now is, if it gets back down toward $1 here, maybe there's a buy zone here just ahead of that $2 mark, like 210 to 205, something like that. But if it doesn't get like rapidly bought up there, basically like what you saw here, rapid buy up, if that doesn't happen, I think there's real slippery waters toward like well into the dollar mark. The other thing is it did fill this gap, right, when it had this swing back up. So maybe we see something similar. Maybe folks start to feel better about the earnings call. My understanding of the call was basically that the call was actually good on the fundamentals. Though reduced expectations though they may be, but that those were met, and there was a lot of unsurety around the CEO, and that now there was a new CEO coming in, and 15 minutes ago, gains nearly 4%. As you see, it ended the day down. So I think that the stickiness of bullish motion is just really tough for Lucid right now. Not that I'm breaking any ground in saying that, but the degree to which it's going to want to fill this gap, if it does, maybe there's some recoverability potential there that then has folks take a second look at it, right? If things start to curl, start to move back and fill the gap, maybe folks do take a second look and they go, you know what? The earnings call was decent enough. They've sorted out the CEO situation. Let me see if there's an opportunity for some cheap shares here. If that's the case, it would get into this gap at like 249, and it would fill it at about 260. So, it's like a 10 to 12 cent move. Not amazing, but it's something. Again, I think the greater potential there is if it fills it, and then that has folks going, Lucid's climbing back up again, and it didn't dip back, super close to 2. Maybe there's something here. But I think it's in some pretty tricky territory here. So I did put some levels below. Those are the levels up that I'd look at. First, I'd look at the gap fill. That'll take you to 260. And then, you do have a sticky zone right there, right? Sticky up until like 270, basically, from all of this previous support that it had found when it put in this double top and then started to fall apart. But we can readdress it there. But there would be another approach if it gets through 270 toward that $3 mark, and that's this topping out here. In any case, if it does start to, or continue to crumble, I should say, I have this green level here, 231, because to me, my feeling was if it comes down, this is where I'm going to want to see the buy zone. That's what I had said back here, and the reasoning was I would want this to be the double bottom, not needing it to come down to try and double bottom down here. That wouldn't feel great to me. Coming back down to all-time lows in order to double bottom. I think that's all-time lows, right? Yeah. So that was why I had that green there. It is still wrestling with it at the moment, right? It put price action right through it today. So I don't necessarily want to say it's totally lost it. These things have a range and they have the ability to wrestle a little bit above, a little bit below. So to me, it's still making contact. It's still wrestling with it, but I feel like it could fall apart pretty easily. And if it does, I have 220 here. Like I said, if it dips toward that like 210 range and doesn't get bought up, like 205 to 210 or so, and doesn't get bought up, I think things could get really tricky. So I have just under 2. Maybe there's some buying pressure that comes in there on 197, but then I have looking, then you're just really fishing for support out there in the nether regions of the stock chart. But I have 183, 171, and I think there's something then below that. There's a couple levels below that. Just if I can see this, 144, 123. So if it does start to crumble toward $1, I had seen this, Lucid stock tanks, BOA assigns $1 price target. That's where I got that question of like, what would an approach toward 1 look like? And so that's why I put those levels in there. So if it does, start to crater to the extent to which those support levels provide any brief bounces or any bounce potential, just because it dips into ones doesn't mean it has to go all the way to 1. But maybe there's something to play, even if it's a short-term swing. Don't get stressed out. If that's not your investing style or your trading style, you don't have to listen to my video. So that's what I'm talking about here. Swings typically in the range of like 2 weeks to 2 months. That's what I'm looking for most often. But then there are periods I'm like, you know what? Like I said back here with Lucid, I said this is its best opportunity by far for something more meaningful than a short-term swing trade. And it failed, right? It gave it a good effort, to be honest. That climb over that month period was pretty solid. And then it tried with all its might to build support and go again. And I thought, well, maybe on the second go, but yeah, it just failed miserably. And so these are the levels that I see. If we take a look here at the order flow, the degree to which people have any interest in dollar cost averaging down on their unprofitable Lucid positioning at the moment, there's ample opportunity, right? Apparently, about 92% of them are underwater. Will they step in to do that? I don't know. There's a bunch of volume up here, like we said, in that sticky area around like 270. And so, this is the thin area. We said if it gets through that approach to 3, there's some room until you get toward 3, like the psychological $3 level. So we'll see if there's any stomach for folks to come in and dollar cost average down, but I just mentioned that to say if that does build or add to any buying pressure, bring any buying pressure in, maybe that's where it comes. Interestingly enough, on the peel off, there were a ton of large scale orders that piled in. So maybe institutions or large scale investors do see potential for Lucid here based off of those fundamentals and feeling like, okay, maybe they have a grip on the CEO situation. That's going to be okay. It's going to be at least stable enough. And, we feel good about the guidance. We feel good about the earnings report and the details that were in there. And so, you know what? We're going to take a shot. So for what it's worth, that seems to be what was happening today. I know this isn't particular to Lucid, but I do have overall pretty strong concerns about the quality of the market pricing where it is right now, meaning like S&P, NASDAQ, Dow, like where things are situated and the degree to which they're overvalued and there's a correction about to come, and maybe some additional economic or global forces that come in to sort of pile on to a pullback, that would be maybe even my bigger concern with Lucid, that it would get absolutely pummeled in that situation because it would just be seen as too speculative, even if there is recent decent news that could otherwise help things turn around or stabilize. If things get, in a macro sense, unstable, I think that the speculative nature still, as it's perceived, of Lucid, plus, the long-term chart as it exists, I think it would be, it'd be a tough one. You see this buy zone here previously, right? So slipped, or I almost took my own bait there. It hasn't slipped through it yet. It is below it. That doesn't mean it's lost it. Still making contact with it, but that's why that zone is so important in my eyes. Very briefly here on the Thinkorswim side of things, slipping out of the channel at the moment, so the degree to which that's sort of unpalatable for the price to remain outside of the channel and it does kind of stabilize, even if that's relatively sideways, or get a little bit of a bounce based off of that could certainly happen. We're basically into the March levels at the moment. Those are situated with a call trigger at 283. So again, that, like we said, that sort of smooth sailing after 270 up until you approach 3. So here it's saying 283, if it can get through there and get some motion, it has a +1 potential in March of 476. And then you see the put trigger down here all the way down at 163. So, per these ATR levels at least, this is saying things could get really, really slippery really quickly if it busts through 163. But there's a ways to go until that would come into play. All right, folks. Well, I hope that you've had a good trading week. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.